Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It's the international break, which tends to make us a little sad, but what can make you happier than the fact the Reds are 5 points clear at the top of the league? So here to recount the Villa victory and everything Liverpool related is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. There's nothing to be sad about right now, David, is there? 5 points clear at the top of the league. Everything is good, really.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable, really, that to say that Arsenal and City have dropped points on consecutive weekends and Liverpool have won on both. For it to happen once is extremely unusual, particularly in the title races that Liverpool have been involved in, whereas Manchester City would never drop points. And for there to be two title rivals there and to do that back-to-back weekends, it really doesn't get much better than that. So, it's as good as it could be, the mood at the moment, I think. And I know some people think, oh, well, international break might halt the momentum, but I also think it takes the players out the pressure of it. It's a little bit of a break from that, and everyone will come back into it absolutely flying and feeling good about Liverpool. Hopefully there's no injuries, but I think Liverpool in a really, really good place at the moment, and the weekend was just topped it off, really.
Yeah, no two ways about it. And it was an interesting one, this Villa game, because Leverkusen was a demolition of them. There's no two ways about it. This one, there had to be a bit of fight, a bit of grit, the determination shown. But that's as impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of what I loved about it, really, was that it was kind of just doing something a little bit different in terms, they've won games in so many different ways recently. Leverkusen really controlled and just waiting for the moment to get that goal, and then it collapses and they make the most of that. Brighton, a really stirring comeback against a side who played unbelievable football, and we saw again how good they are at the weekend. And then obviously Aston Villa is something totally different, a side who don't want to aggressively press you, kind of want to stand off you and turn the game into kind of a physical battle, real threat from set pieces. And that physicality really is what kind of stood out to me, is the game was descended into a little bit of a battle, really, and that Liverpool came through that, goal in each half, controlled it, didn't give up too much. It's just a different way of winning than we've seen. And again, it's another, string to the bow and more proof, really, that this is a really well-rounded title contender that maybe can go to the end. So it was nice to see them winning a different sort of game, really.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And Anfield, we're pretty sure going forward we're going to need the big coats, but there was plenty of voices and people seemed, in a good way, tanked up from a full day's drinking on Saturday. It came to life again, didn't it?
Yeah, it just shows as well, though, all that discussion about the atmosphere earlier in the season, and it's not the same as it was. It's just nonsense. It comes around every season. Can we not fall into that trap again next season of doing the same? There has to be something on the line. It's always reacting to what's going on the pitch, and they've had 3 really big games and important ones, and where the circumstances have required a massive atmosphere over the last 3. And Anfield's absolutely delivered and been brilliant. And I saw Arne Slot at the end when he's saluting the cop, and he just looked absolutely delighted with it, to be honest. He looked really pleased that, to have seen this. And I think he's seen a different side of Anfield, the best side of Anfield. And, I'm sure he'll know it's not going to be like that in every game between now and the end of the season. But when he needs it, when he needs to lean on it, it's going to be there. And it's, one of the best places to watch football on earth. So it was, really, really good atmosphere again. And as you say, it probably does help a little bit when you have people having that lead-in time of drinking. And also, and I mentioned before the game, imagine if City dropped points, and they actually did. So it was just absolutely perfect. And it went off, particularly around the second goal that sealed it.
Yeah. And speaking of the second goal and sealed it, Mo Salah, 10 goals and 10 assists already. It's almost criminal that we don't talk about him that much on this pod, isn't it? Because it, again, just a match winner, and again, another top-class performance.
Yeah, you just become too used to it, really. And, the fact is that throughout that game, it just gets to the end, and then you think about it and you're like, oh, he scored and he got an assist, and it was 2 goals scored in the game, and basically he was the match winner, and you just kind of shrug your shoulders and move on. And you think, if that had been any of the other forwards, you'd be saying, wow, what an impact they'd had. But because it's just happened so frequently for Mo, you get a bit blasé about it, really. And he's just phenomenal again. I thought he terrorised Digne all game, really. Digne's sort of had an okay game purely on the basis of his set piece delivery was unbelievable. But I thought every other aspect, Mo Salah just kind of ragdolled him. So, he's unbelievable. And he's having another one of those starts to the season. And, we consistently said, didn't we, he's going to be Liverpool's top scorer this season, before a ball had been kicked. And he's just making clear that is definitely going to be the case, and he's still playing at that level. And there's just that thing hanging in the background, isn't there, around his contract that makes you a little bit concerned. But if you put that to one side, it's just great to enjoy watching him play football at this standard. He's unbelievable, really.
There's not going to be a week that goes past until we get a resolution. I'm probably not going to ask you some frame of question about the contract. And you saw that celebration. It was almost like last season against Newcastle when he'd hit that peak, wasn't it, before the AFCON, and he did it sitting on the stands. And I know you'll have clocked that banner as well in the COP, the FSG one, about paying his dough. Thoughts on those ones?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the rhyming on that banner, to be honest. I'm massively keen on that, but I think the point was very salient. And yeah, it's just massively important, isn't it? And, I will continually say about this that, look, the sporting director and that whole recruitment staff, your task is, if you are not willing to pay him what he needs or give him the amount of years he wants, and I still think there's surely room for a compromise around a 2-year deal or something like that. That feels safe to me. If they're not willing to find that compromise there, then your job for next season is to find someone who gets 10 goals and 10 assists by this point of the year. And, good luck in doing that, And that's the thing, is they will stand by it and say, right, well, we've made this decision now, we've got to back it up. And so they'll have confidence that they can do it if it comes to it. But we just get to sit back and see how that works out for them, because I think it'd be an unbelievably tough task to find someone who is this level, because he's just out of this world, really.
Do you think that there is a bit of it, though, that, again, we've talked about this, just because sometimes the fact he is doing so well, if there isn't sort of a resolution or progress as we get to January, you could almost feel that sort of nerves or tension, and it just distract the focus away from what is a brilliant start at the moment.
I don't know, really. I don't know if we kind of all make a little bit more of these things than the reality, really. I don't, I just think we think it'll start to be a distraction, but we're the ones talking about it. We're the ones kind of making it a distraction. And you think within the walls of the training ground, does it really kind of get to that point with them? Are they really that bothered about it? Particularly when, if it gets to the other side of January and Mo isn't signed up, you'd like to think there's still going to be a title to be won there, and a lot of focus will be on sorting that rather than his future. So I'm not sure how big of a distraction it would make unless we kind of make it one. So hopefully it doesn't come to that as well. There's still time to get to that January that feels a bit of a cut-off, and hopefully there's some sort of resolution between now and then, at least on a couple of these, because it's not just him, is it?
Yeah, indeed. Fingers crossed for 3 across the board. And feel free to push your comments in below as well, ladies and gents. And I mean, talking about players, again, I don't know if we're just getting numb to it, but we just expect Ibou Konate to be brilliant, and he was brilliant again.
Yeah, he's having an incredible season, isn't he? I mean, it's always been the case, hasn't it? The only question mark really has been his fitness, and he is just consistently getting on the pitch now. He's had no problems playing an awful lot of games in that run, and your heart's in your mouth every time he goes down for a second, which he actually did in this game. But in terms of his level of performance, he's just right back up there, isn't he? And I just think it's every new striker he kind of comes up against, they always drag onto him because they don't want to go near Virgil van Dijk, and then they quickly kind of find out that it's a fool's errand to do that as well, because I thought he just absolutely bullied Watkins throughout his time on the pitch. He was quicker, stronger, more composed, and Watkins just got absolutely nothing out of him. And I can only really remember one Watkins shot, which was some kind of miles outside the box that he kills over, no real threat. And that shows, he's a really dangerous finisher if he gets anywhere close, but he just couldn't. He just wasn't, he was getting outpaced, as I say, they were going shoulder to shoulder. He was too strong for him. So, when you've got those two aspects, and then you've got that composure in terms of just nicking the ball away and then using it well, you're an unbelievable defender. And Konate is absolutely showing that. He's been, he's more tested than Van Dijk through games. So you've got to say he's probably more impressive this season in what he's doing, because he's having to do a lot more defending, and he's doing it really, really well.
I suppose that a two-part question I'm going to put to you right now, based on what you've seen across the board so far this season, Ibu Kanate, Player of the Year contender and Team of the Year contender.
Yeah, I think he's got to be. I think, like I say, he's busier than Van Dijk, so he's got a good shout to get in on that. And I think, you're part of the central defence that's conceded the least amount of goals. So, if that continues at that rate, and the least for expected goals against as well, so the underlying numbers suggest that they will be in with a shout of being the best defensive side. So, I think he's got to be up there. I mean, there's so many contenders at Liverpool at the moment, and I really, when it comes to kind of Player of the Year stuff, you probably hard pushed to look away from the forwards because it is the hardest thing to do in football. But I think Kanate should be right up there for it, and certainly in Team of the Season, absolutely should be near to that if he can keep up his form. And fingers crossed he can stay fit, because that's the thing you're concerned about with him.
Yeah, it's just availability. That's the only thing we're sort of praying for. And speaking of availability, a player in the midfield who's just as crucial, almost again, one who started the season so well and he's just kept it going. We can't be blasé about this. Gravenberch was great against Villa as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, again, he's getting to the point where you're kind of putting a bit less focus on him now, because we are getting used to him being at this level, whereas at the start of the season, it was a massive surprise and a really pleasant one. Yeah, absolutely brilliant again. And I mean, it's a game there where, talked about the physicality and the need to win battles. And he is so good at that. And that's those central areas, just winning duels and using the ball well, but also that dribbling ability. There's a few moments where he just sort of tears away from the Villa midfield and they have to bring him down, or he sets up the start of a chance. He's absolutely brilliant. And I love that block he makes from the shot at the edge of the area. Is it Jacob Ramsey? It leaves two for dead because they think the overlap tempts them both in. And I just thought he's getting a shot off here. Even watching in the ground, I had a perfect angle of it. I didn't see Gravenberch coming at all. He just slides in from nowhere and gets there. And yeah, that's sort of the defensive commitment that he showed all season. And he was like that all game, just winning his battles across the pitch. And yeah, again, another one that you should say possibly is going to be in that Player of the Year contention, or certainly Team of the Season contention, because he's been playing probably his best football of his career so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've seen the blocks, the tackles. Again, we almost just expect them each week. Is there a danger a little bit with Gravenberch when you look at the stats? I mean, he's played every Premier League game and every Champions League game, and especially with the calendar, and he's now a mainstay for the Dutch team as well. He probably is unique, and I look at it in the sense of he's maybe the hardest midfielder to replace if he has to go out at the moment. Do you think they've got to be really careful now with how they manage his minutes?
Yeah, my big concern for him as well is that he's going to have a career high for minutes over this season if he stays fit. And you might start to see some effects of that when it gets towards the end of the season. So that is a little bit of a worry around him. We don't know how he'll kind of ride that wave and how he'll be feeling towards the end of the season. So that is a concern. They've got to protect him when they can. Hopefully Champions League get through as quickly as possible and then just start to pick and choose games for him around that. If there's the odd Premier League game he can miss out on, that would be fantastic. I just think you do have to really be careful with him, because you don't want it to get to kind of April, May, and he's got nothing left in the tank, because he's just crucial, isn't he? As you say, very, very hard to replace what he does in that central midfield. So I think that's fair to say that's a little bit of a worry, but we'll see how we go with that. And we don't know as well, the benefits of kind of Slot's team in terms of their conditioning and whether that will make the difference and not playing a really intense style of football in comparison to what they were maybe last season. That could be really helpful, and those two could level each other out. But as I say, it's just a little worry in the back of the mind, maybe.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what they do with him. And I mean, Queeve Kelleher, we're almost being blasé about so many people, but it seems even crazy to call him a number 2, because there was a couple of brilliant saves in this one again, wasn't there?
Yeah. And again, very sort of Alisson-like, in that he didn't really have anything to do all match, and then when the moment was called upon, he was there to make really, really important saves and did. He's just, that is exactly what you would say a top class keeper could do, and he's got all that comfort with the ball at his feet as well. He can come in and make that third man when Liverpool want to bait the press, although didn't have much success in that because Villa didn't really want to press them in this game. But generally speaking, he's very good at that. And yeah, it's just the fact is we have not really spoke about Alisson's absence. We've not had that as a talking point on any of these pods saying, yeah, he's starting to be a big miss, isn't he? And blah, blah, blah. Because he just hasn't. That is how good Queeveen Kelleher has been. And again, surely one of these big teams, I'm looking at you, Chelsea, with Robert Sanchez in your goal, conceding the near post every time. Surely one of them is thinking, we've got to buy this lad. He's clearly able to play at that kind of Champions League level. I just think he's perfectly suited to play in goals for a top team. I'm not sure, if you were peppering him constantly, what he'd be like, or if he had to be one of those kind of dominant goalkeepers who's catching corners constantly because you're always under pressure. I don't know. But the fact is, he's playing in a team of Liverpool's level at the moment and looking absolutely well matched to it. So yeah, he's been phenomenal. We don't quite know whether Alisson will be straight back after the break or whether there's maybe a week or two after that. We'll have to see in terms of when he comes back. But you wouldn't be concerned if he had a little bit more of Kelleher because he's been outstanding. And yeah, it's a shame for him. Really, he's going to be pushed out the team soon because he's performed admirably in this run.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And again, this summer, everyone fully expects him to move on, and he'll have a year left on his contract. But even with a year left on his contract, the way he's performing, they'll probably pick up a tidy fee for him, won't they?
Yeah, they should do. I mean, the expectation was around 25 million would have kind of brought them to the table last summer. You're probably going to have to knock a bit off that with a year remaining. But, I think Liverpool will drive a hard bargain there. And look, the sides who are desperate for a goalkeeper keep mentioning Chelsea because they clearly are. If they are desperate for a goalkeeper and you're going to get someone of that quality, you will pay a hefty sum. So, yeah, I think Liverpool could still get a tidy fee in for him. And it's still going to be sad to see him go because he's so good, been so good down the years, won a couple of League Cups there. And he seems like a great lad as well. But it's, he deserves to go out now and really start his career. And I do think, actually, that is one of the upsides of the Alisson injury. It's good to see him getting minutes because, he probably did want to go last summer, but he stuck around and he's actually got a bit of a reward here. He's going to still be in the League Cup as well. So, hopefully he can be in the FA Cup as well. But there's opportunities for minutes for him this season. And that's good because it was a bit of a shame, really. He couldn't get that move last summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And even a tidy fee, if he does go this summer, should be coming our way. And we say, and you're right, you always say we should always talk about refs from a position of strength so it doesn't seem of sour grapes. And David Coote on Saturday, who people, just in case you are listening, is not a Manchester United fan. He is a Nottingham Forest fan, despite all the reports that come that way. But I suppose there's that bit where, and you know what I'm talking about, Salah goes clean through and he's wiped out by Leon Bailey. And David Coote just gives it a complete, no foul, doesn't he? That seemed to be the indication. I mean, we must have been reading that wrong, surely.
No, I think he clearly didn't think. I think he maybe thinks that Salah trips himself up or something like that. I mean, he's absolutely wrong. While we're talking about this, by the way, I had a tweet after the match, just did my full-time tweet, and sort of a Villa fan had replied and said, well, it helps when you've got the ref as a 12th man. So I will make that point that apparently Aston Villa fans didn't think he was very good, which, so there you go. I don't think there's any biases there or he's trying to do over Liverpool. I do think there was a few squiffy decisions really across the entire match. I don't like to get too much into ref, but I think he's one of the ones who, when I've seen him as far as I can kind of remember, I don't think he's one of the better ones, if I'm honest. And the thing is with the Salah one, look, as soon as he's clearly indicating for no foul, but I think the VAR would have helped him out there. It's a pretty obvious one, denial of a goal scoring opportunity. I think they would have had a look at it if the ball doesn't end up in the back of the net, and I'm pretty sure they would have advised for a red card in that situation. So thankfully Liverpool did put the ball in the back of the net. Whether they'd have been better served if Villa gone down to 10 men instead, we don't know because Núñez finishes it off. So it's not too much of a controversial situation. You've got to accept if VAR's there that the ref is going to get it wrong from time to time, and I think he did on that one. But he would likely have been helped out. So not too big of a controversy really.
Yeah, absolutely. And the two shouts they had were ridiculous. The other one for Pau Torres, and when Ollie Watkins does a Superman impression, there's nothing in that at all either. So, yeah, no, doesn't really count in the end.
I didn't really get why Pau Torres goes down. I've watched it back a few times, the one he goes down late on around the goal. I'm still not sure what he thinks happens there, or he clearly was completely faking being injured, by the way. I don't, because I kept looking as he turned his ankle or something, as maybe he just stood on it. It stood in a funny way. No, I think he was just trying to win a penalty through diving, really. So it was really, really poor, to be honest. There was absolutely nothing there. And the Watkins one, I think Watkins clearly kicks into the back of the legs of Canate, doesn't he? And so no controversy around that one either. So you'd have to say, big decisions. He gets lucky around the one that Nunes finishes off in the end, but overall kind of gets the decisions right, really, doesn't he? I guess because he plays the advantage that inadvertently plays an advantage that ends in a goal and doesn't give two penalties that are not penalties. So yeah, fair play, David Coote. What a ref!
Yeah, as long as the results finish that way, we'll take it, I suppose. And we mentioned Darwin Nunes there. We got his full range, didn't we? We got the brilliant finish and the shanked one-on-one and the missed header, along with, again, an all-action pressing, sometimes good defensive helping out. We got the full portfolio, didn't we?
Yeah, I wasn't too frustrated with the miss either, in terms of, the header miss is not really a miss. They are tough chances. I think people underestimate how hard it is to score headers, to be honest. And he's kind of just about in line with the post. So it's got to be a really flick one to the far post. And that's quite hard to generate sometimes. Or, he can sneak it in at that near post. And he's not a million miles off. And they are tough chances. His movement before it's great as well. And obviously he takes his actual goal really, really well, lifting it over the keeper weight because he knows his dive's going to come low. And then the one-on-one he misses, I think he just kind of gets a bad bounce. And look, I think with his finishing, I think, Salah can miss those, by the way. I mean, I think he misses... I think back to that City game where Liverpool win 1-0 at Anfield and he puts one away. I think he missed a couple of one-on-ones in the build-up to that. So, everyone can miss chances. And my thing with Nunes is not that he misses big chances. That will happen from time to time. It's the amount he misses relative to the amount he puts away. And that just had to come a little bit more level than it was. So that's not to say he's going to bag every chance now. He's never going to be that player. He just had to score some and miss some. And, in the way that even Erling Haaland does, for example, you don't have to put every chance away. He doesn't have to overperform his XG. He just has to kind of get in line with it. So that miss is just kind of one of those that can happen to any player. I'm absolutely fine with that. It's not that he missed 3 or 4 in the match and it's terrible. And the thing is, he gets a goal. So he gets 2 really good chances, scores 1, misses 1. And his overall play was, I thought, really good again in terms of just protecting the ball. The things he wasn't doing that were most frustrating for me around Nunes, in terms of just giving it away every time he got it or being bullied off the ball. He was keeping it. He was making sensible decisions. His movement was good. He was, linking players exactly as he should do. And I think, I was ready to write him off after that Bologna game. But I think if we see more performances like this going forward, where, he's never going to be absolutely mega prolific, but if he can link play as he has been doing in recent weeks and, bring others in and protect the ball and make sure Liverpool keep it in that area of the pitch, then, he's on an upward trajectory and long may it continue. As I say, I've written him off in the past, and I think on a fair amount of evidence, but I'm hugely encouraged by what we're seeing under this manager. So hopefully he can keep that going.
Yeah, there is so many players are just looking better, to be fair, or developing under this manager. So long may it continue. And the only downside to Saturday, Trent. Now, we're hoping, fingers crossed, touch wood and everything, it may be that he's flagged it early, he goes down, he clearly indicates it's his hammy as well. He walks off, he doesn't look in too much discomfort, not that that's a medical reading at all. Is there any update on this? Is it just a case of praying it is just a small injury more than anything?
Yeah, so I saw James Pearce's report, and obviously he's got really good sources around that, so no reason to kind of disbelieve that, and that seemed encouraging. I've not personally heard anything on that, but I absolutely think that would be nailed on, that it's not too bad. And I think from the way you see, he doesn't kind of pull up really sharply, or I think he maybe just felt a bit of discomfort in it and thought there's no point risking it, and that's very much something the new medical staff have brought in. Don't try and push yourself. Don't try and play through anything. Just come off if you feel anything. So hopefully it'll be one of those nice little kind of Arsenal injuries where he's just misses the international break and he's back after that. Particularly, if, even if he needs to miss Southampton, it's obviously some big games coming up after that to look forward to. So hopefully he's right for that. It didn't look too bad. So yeah, fingers crossed it's just a mini one. And then, you think if you can get him back for Manchester City and Real Madrid, you're looking at Alisson, Chiesa being in contention for that, Jota as well, hopefully. The squad started, Harvey Elliott even. The squad's starting to look a lot better. So yeah, hopefully it's just one of those kind of minor ones.
Is that the big boost that we're probably hoping for during the international break? Like you mentioned, that he's talked about them all, because he mentioned Jota kind of 1 to 2 weeks away after the international break. Chiesa he mentioned in the embargo as well. Alisson we're hopeful of. Harvey Elliott. It could be a real boost during the international break, this, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've just got to hope they don't get any fresh ones over the international break. That can always happen. So fingers crossed it doesn't. Obviously, Mo's not going away with Egypt, which is an absolutely humongous boost. But there are other players you're concerned about. But yeah, if you get those 4 players plus Trent back after the other side of the international break, you have a full squad, which, I mean, I can't really remember that ever happening last season at any point. So that would be bizarre if that happened. But yeah, it would just be a huge boost to the options, because it's not just about sort of rotating as well. It's even having options to change games, particularly Harvey Elliott. I know they've not missed him in this period because the results have been fantastic, but I still think he could have played a big role. And I think, changing games, he's so good at that. As good as Kelleher is, we have to remember that Alisson is just that little step above as well. He can save the unsavable at times. Jota, he's up there as one of the best finishers, isn't he, at the club? I mean, I'm reluctant maybe to say he's the best finisher, because you think about Mo putting chances away at the moment. And just Chiesa as well for, don't want to kind of minimise him, but at the moment, to have him around for the League Cup would be great, to get him acclimatised through that, so you don't have to play one of your big hitters in those games will be absolutely massive. So, it would be huge to get all those back as soon as possible, and the squad just starts to look a lot healthier. And thankfully, it's not escalated yet into kind of injury crisis mode. They've still got good options, and it's looking good. But to get all those back and looking healthy like that, it's a squad that's as good as any in the league, really, at the moment. And I think you can actually see that with the way that Arsenal have struggled with injuries and the way that City is struggling with injuries at the moment. Liverpool maybe do have the best strength in depth, really.
Yeah, if we can get all those back. I mean, that is the big hope for the international break, as you said. And you mentioned it there as well. We shouldn't undersell this. Mo Salah not going away on Egypt duty. That is a brilliant pick-me-up for this break, isn't it?
Yeah, is this new manager of Egypt a cop-out? Because he keeps kind of he's very willing to leave him out, isn't he? And which is fantastic, really. So it does Liverpool a massive favour. And again, we always talk about with Mo that your concern is the second half of the season. Will he just fall away a little bit as he did last year? He is getting older, so it's harder to keep that intensity up. So that was the kind of concern around Mo. And yeah, if he's missing international breaks like this, it's a huge help, because it's just extra minutes, it's travel, everything else. He can just get his feet up and be ready for those big games that are to come. So yeah, an absolutely massive bonus for Liverpool. And yeah, I love that Egypt manager. Seems like a really sound guy.
Yeah, there are suggestions, and I don't know if it's true, that the Egypt manager is the record scorer for Egypt. So we've just done a one Salah chasing. That's the suggestion I've heard. I don't know how true that is, but it would make a lot of sense. So long may that continue if it is the right case. But yeah, Mo Salah will get a rest, which is a big bonus. And this bit, we are not a million miles away from January. We've talked about targets before. We talked about Tchouaméni last week. That was Zubimendi's been on the docket. Left back seemed to be mentioned quite a bit recently. So the 2 names that have been called out by various sources, Kirkes, the left back who's at Bournemouth, who are having a good season. We know the scouts they've taken recently. And in the weirdest source I've heard for a long time, Gary Lineker on his podcast quotes Murillo, that Liverpool are interested in him, sort of a left-sided defender, left-sided centre-back, can play left-back as well. Heard anything against those 2 names at all?
I always put a kind of question mark over the Murillo stuff, and I know he's a fantastic player, by the way. I really enjoyed watching him so far this season. He is clearly really high quality. I think he showed it against Liverpool last season as well, actually. I think he's just a really good player. but he's 6 foot, isn't he? And I just think under this kind of regime, particularly Michael Edwards, they always like to sign players who are massive centre halves, who are aerially dominant, and that that has been a consistent theme really. Now with Murillo, maybe he comes into the mix if, say, you lose Joe Gomez in January, maybe he gets a move that he wants to go for, and replacing him with a Murillo. Joe Gomez isn't the most aerially dominant centre half you'll ever see in your life, but he is capable of playing across the back four. So whether they see him as kind of that, but it would still kind of surprise me if they signed a centre half who isn't over 6, a lot over 6 foot. I just feel like that's something we've consistently seen in their approach to recruitment. So I am a little bit skeptical on the Murillo links, if I'm honest, but I think he's a very, very good player. So, maybe you can't completely rule him out, but it's just one of those things, leaves a question mark for me over him. And Kirkez, on the other hand, I think it is absolutely one who I think Liverpool would look at. I'm pretty sure he was on their radar before he even moved to Bournemouth. And obviously it helps that Richard Hughes is in now, so he's going to like players who he liked back then and think that he can play at a high level. He's great age, isn't he? He's starting to really produce in terms of his output, good on both sides of the ball. So, yeah, he's one that I've no doubt that they're keeping an eye on. But whether that's a little bit soon for him to come yet, obviously in January, I'm still skeptical again about the fact that they would bring in a left back in January. I just think they'll probably go with these two till the end of the season and see where they're up to after that. But I've no doubt that they're keeping an eye on Kirkez because great age, unbelievable quality. Now got that Premier League experience and yeah, great on both sides of the ball. They'd be a really, really good fit for Liverpool. So I'm sure they're watching him.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see who they are watching. I suppose, does your gut tell you at this stage that probably we heard last summer opportunistic? That was the phrase, that was the terminology, which kind of is the opposite of the January. It tends to be like gap filling or something that might come up at the last minute. Are you skeptical that we'll do business in January?
No, I still think there's a case to be made that they could do something. I don't think, as I say, it'll be maybe at left back, but I still think if the right central midfielder came up who they think is absolutely going to do the job for them, be that Zubimendi or anyone else, then I think they would go and do it because they're not averse to signing players in January. We've seen that, but it's all the big question mark is availability and whether their clubs will make them available in the middle of the season or not. So we don't kind of quite know whether that will be the case. But if there's someone out there who they definitely like and they think is a really long-term option and not just to get them through to the end of the season, they will go for them in January. And I think in central midfield for me is an area where Liverpool could probably just do with one more, and you could make that case easily without even shifting anyone. So, if that's possible, I'm sure they will absolutely do it.
Well, yeah, it will be interesting to see, and we're not going to have to wait long to find out at all because we're in mid-November pretty much as well. And we finish, as we always do, talking about wider football and everything that's going on. It wasn't an exactly perfect weekend, but City losing, Arsenal drawing, we'd have taken that all day, wouldn't we?
Oh, absolutely. As I said earlier, it doesn't really happen very often. So to get a couple on the bounce where they both drop points is ridiculous, really. And yeah, I mean, Arsenal being 9 points behind, I sometimes don't think that people kind of appreciate the mathematics behind that, of what that means in terms of, how far behind that is. I mean, you could say, oh, well, they might get on a little run and it can close up really easily, but they're also reliant on Liverpool going on a bad run as well. And you have less time to do it. If the aim is to get 90 points, you almost have to be completely flawless between now and the end of the season to make up that gap. So no room for error, really. And, once you get to a 9-point gap, if the title winning total is not going to be unusually low, like in the 80s, then they really do nearly have to be flawless from here on in. I don't think people appreciate that a 9-point gap is hugely significant to the point at which you could say, if you were, cocky about it, you could say that they're out of the title race. I probably wouldn't go that far because I'm a coward, but, they really are going to struggle to drag it back from here. That is a long way back. And with City, it's not so much the 5-point gap, although that is massively helpful, and you want to get as far ahead of them as you can at any stage where they are dropping points, because they tend to not drop those points. But the thing that encourages me most is that they look so poor at the moment. They look like a team with real issues. And I think I was talking to a guy who supports City, who I used to work with, and I said, do you think it's kind of a Rodri issue? Is it just as simple as that? And he said, obviously that's part of it. He's unbelievable, so influential in that side. But he said it does feel a little bit as well like the age profile of the side's just gone too far now. So you look at some of the players who featured in that game at Brighton at the weekend: Kovacic, Gundogan, Kyle Walker, Bernardo Silva, even Kevin De Bruyne, who's injured constantly. They've got a lot of players on the other side of 30, and it can just happen where you just drop like that. All of a sudden, this is the thing that Liverpool got to be wary about with the contracts, by the way. It can just happen that suddenly it's too much and the gaps are too big in midfield and you haven't got that physicality to close them. And it looks maybe, and I don't want to get too carried away, but there are hints there that is exactly what's happening to City, and they can't plug those gaps. And they've maybe ridden that squad or certain elements of it just a little bit too far. So that for me is what should be encouraging Liverpool and make them think that they've really got a chance this season, that it will be very hard for City to get on that ridiculous run of winning 20 on the bounce because they've no Rodri, because those players are just physically just over the edge a little bit. So I think Liverpool fans should be excited about it. It looks like they've got a real opportunity this season. But of course, the key thing is that they keep passing all the tests that are thrown in front of them, and they don't have a drop off at any point.
Yeah, because I think people suspect City will go again in January. You'd be astonished if they didn't sign anyone as well. So if you can get that gap and keep it going, that might be the big test. And maybe this bit is being super greedy. Real Madrid are losing a few games and they are getting injuries galore. Militao out as well. Vasquez goes off. Question marks over Rodrigo. He looks like he could miss the rain. Liverpool. I'm being greedy in saying this. Would this be a great time to play Real Madrid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always concerned about the fact that they maybe just have one over on Liverpool, and that no matter who they put on the pitch, they'll somehow manage to spawn a win somehow. But it does look like a good time to play them. I mean, all the things that people have sort of pointed at them over the last few years in terms of not having any plan, and they just kind of looking their way through games, and it's just all about having quality players on the pitch. There's no real tactical identity. We're actually starting to kind of see the consequences of that, really. They do look very messy at the moment, and doesn't look like adding Mbappe to the team's really made it any stronger. It looks like it's just caused a few problems, and then you throw the injuries on top, and the form is a little wobbly. And the fact it's at Anfield as well, and Liverpool should be, absolutely roaring into that game and thinking that this is a real good chance to finally put Real Madrid to the sword and get that kind of monkey off the back, because it's been ridiculous, really, their run against them in recent years. So they're not going to get a better opportunity to put that right and to be at Anfield and to be going into that full of confidence, which it looks like Liverpool will. They've just got to make the most of it now. This is a disorganised, struggling Real Madrid team coming to your home turf. Just make the most of it and blow them away, because it's long overdue. And you think of the Trent factor as well, to get one over them quite significantly would feel like it would have some more meaning as well. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that this is the time that Liverpool finally put it right against Real Madrid, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm back there, disappeared for a second, but I did hear everything that you said there as well. And fingers crossed, this is a huge period coming up. The international break, no further injuries, everyone coming back for what is an absolutely pivotal period. And I suppose the final question I'll ask you, because we kind of tied City and Real Madrid together, would you accept a Real
if anyone's watching live, feels like we might have lost Dave there, but so I'm not entirely sure what he was going to ask me there, but we'll just hang on and maybe he'll come back. Hopefully, I'm not sure what's going on with his connection at the moment.